I had never felt hunger like that before. Not the gnawing emptiness of an empty stomach, not the craving for water, not even the faint ache that comes after skipping meals. This was different. This was the hunger that lives inside you, relentless, sharp, impossible to ignore. It began the moment I saw him walk into the dining hall. Daniel. The flicker of candlelight made his robe gleam like polished ivory, the folds falling over his body with effortless elegance. It was a simple robe, sacred almost, but there was nothing simple about the way he moved. Nothing simple about the quiet power in the line of his shoulders, the curve of his jaw, the way his eyes lingered on the table as if he were seeing more than just food. I tried to focus on the meal, on the ritual, on the prayers before us. But my gaze kept drifting back to him, to his hands as he folded them in quiet reverence, to his lips moving slightly as he murmured blessings, to the slow, deliberate way his eyes met mine, holding me in a way that made my chest ache. The blessing of the food should have grounded me, anchored me in holiness. Instead, it lit a fire inside me that I couldn't deny. Every syllable he spoke seemed to stir something deeper than hunger, something forbidden, dangerous, thrilling. When he broke the bread, offering me a piece, our fingers brushed. It was fleeting, almost accidental, yet I felt the electricity of it course through me. He didn't pull away. He let our hands linger just long enough for me to understand that he knew. That he wanted this too. "I saved this for you," he whispered, leaning closer than necessary. His voice was low, intimate, a caress against the quiet of the hall. I blinked, uncertain. "The bread," he smiled then, that slow, secretive curl of lips that made my heart stumble. "Not exactly," he murmured, and his fingers brushed mine again. A spark. A confession. A dare. I could feel it, the tension coiling between us, as tight and dangerous as a bowstring. My pulse raced. My stomach twisted. My hands were clammy, my mouth dry. And yet, I was drawn to him, as if some invisible force pulled me forward, closer, into the orbit of his desire. We ate in silence after that, or at least tried to. Each glance between us felt heavy with meaning. Every accidental touch of elbows, every brush of hands across the table, made my body arch instinctively toward him. The hall felt smaller, the candlelight hotter. I was aware of every detail, the faint smell of his skin, the way his robe shifted as he moved, the subtle quiver in his lips when he caught my gaze. By the time the wine was poured, I realized the ritual was no longer about food. It was about him. It was about the heat that pooled in my stomach every time he looked at me, every time our knees brushed under the table, every time he whispered a word that felt like a secret meant only for me. He leaned closer, his breath grazing my ear. "Do you feel it too?" he asked, voice barely above the soft rustle of the candles. I swallowed hard, trembling. "Yes," I whispered back, though the word felt like a sin as it left my lips. His hand brushed mine again, and I didn't pull away. Our fingers intertwined slowly, hesitantly, as though testing the limits of what we were allowed to do. I could feel the warmth of his skin through the thin fabric of his robe, the steady heat of his pulse under my fingers. My chest heaved with longing. Every nerve in my body screamed, and yet my mind tried to argue that this was wrong. Forbidden. Dangerous. But desire had already won. He leaned closer, closer still, until the warmth of his body pressed lightly against mine across the table. Our lips didn't touch yet, but the proximity was enough. Every subtle shift, every tremor in his hand, every sigh that slipped past his lips, drove me further into the fire I had tried to resist. I felt him feed me his desire in ways that went beyond touch. The way he looked at me, the soft pressure of his palm against mine, the barely audible words he murmured while my heart thudded in my chest, all of it was sustenance, intoxicating and sweet. I drank it in, desperate, greedy, trembling. When the last morsel of bread was gone, and the candles guttered low, the ritual ended. But we were far from sated. The table had disappeared. The room had disappeared. There was only him, only the pull of his eyes, only the ache of waiting finally breaking over me. I leaned forward, unable to resist any longer. Our lips met in a kiss that was both tender and urgent, hesitant yet commanding. I could feel the heat of his body against mine, the shiver of anticipation running through us like electricity. Every movement, every sigh, every breath was a confession of the hunger we had denied for so long. When we finally pulled back, breathless and trembling, the candlelight caught in his eyes, reflecting the fire that matched my own. We were no longer two men at a table. We were two souls entwined, two hearts that had broken the rules and fed on each other's desire. And yet, the world outside waited. The morning would come. The ritual would end. The hunger would return. But that night, for one fleeting, sacred moment, we were each other's feast, each other's salvation, each other's sin. I had been fed. And yet, I was starving already, because desire like his, and like mine, was never meant to be contained. Days passed after that night. I should have felt sated, relieved. Instead, every glance at him, every step in the hallways, every flicker of candlelight brought the memory crashing back. His fingers grazing mine, his lips barely touching, the tremble of his breath against my ear. It was not enough. It would never be enough. During meals, our rituals became more dangerous. I caught him staring at me when he thought I wasn't looking, and I felt my pulse spike, hands trembling in my lap. He would lean just slightly closer than decorum allowed, letting the warmth of his shoulder brush mine. I wanted to lean in, to reach out, to close the distance, but the fear of being seen, of being judged, kept me rooted. And yet, we fed each other in secret, in ways the world could not see. At night, in the quiet hall, our whispers became prayers for permission, for absolution for each other. I learned to read the subtle signs. The tilt of his head, the catch of his breath, the shiver that ran down his spine when our fingers touched under the table. Each tiny movement was a confession, a promise, a plea. One night, he found me alone in the chapel, staring at the empty altar. His presence behind me was a storm, and I could feel it in the tightening of my chest. "You're thinking about it," he said, voice soft but knowing. I swallowed, heart hammering. "You too," I admitted. He stepped closer, closer than I had ever allowed. I could feel the warmth of his body behind me, the soft brush of his fingers against my shoulder. My knees gave way just slightly. Desire and fear tangled inside me, and I realized that I no longer cared who knew, who would judge, or what was right or wrong. "I can't stop," he whispered, breath hot against my neck. "And I don't want to." I wanted to turn, to flee, to resist, but the pull was too strong. The hunger had consumed every ounce of reason, leaving only the raw ache for him, for the forbidden, for the fire we had lit together. We sank to the floor of the chapel together, hidden in shadow. Every touch, every whispered word was electric, a dangerous blessing. We knew we were crossing a line that could never be uncrossed, and yet, neither of us pulled back. Our need for each other had become a force of nature, unstoppable and consuming. But the dawn was relentless. The moment could not last. When the candles guttered and the first light of morning crept across the stone floor, he pulled away, eyes dark with regret, lips trembling. "I can't," he said, voice breaking. "I'm sorry." And just like that, he was gone. I stayed in the empty chapel, trembling, heart aching, hollow in a way I had never known. The desire remained, raw and unyielding, but he had taken the only part of me that could be consumed, my surrender, and left me craving more that could never be returned. I never saw him again. But sometimes late at night, when the wind presses against the windows just right, I can still feel the ghost of his hand against mine, the warmth of his breath, the weight of the hunger we shared. We had broken the rules. We had fed each other in secret. And in the end, we had broken each other too.